Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and we should throw in good night just to cover all the bases wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Print Island. My name is Richard Askam, and you are more than welcome this morning into my very cold lighthouse. You can see that I am attired correctly for the weather at this time of year. It's quite cold on Print Island at this time of year, and windy as well today. So I've shut all the windows and I've invited my guest in. She didn't get the memo about the weather on Print Island today, so it's looking way too summery, it has to be said. But do you know what? It's going to warm up when the sun rises, and I would love to welcome to the Lighthouse Julia Watts. Hello.
Hello, Richard. Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, it's a pleasure, and thank you. Welcome, first time on Print Island. And I know you know a little bit about it because you've already met one of the residents of the island, Chris, over at the Matrix, talking all things software and tech and clever stuff. I'm nowhere near as clever as that. I'm intellectually ruined in regards to technology, as we proved this morning when we tried to get this recording going. But we won't dwell on that. But listen, Julia, it's lovely to meet you. I'm delighted to have you here on Print Island today. If there is anybody in the world, I dare say there isn't, but if there is anybody in the world that doesn't know who you are and what you do, give me the Julia Watts flyby and tell the world what you do.
Yeah, sure. I am the owner of Pattern Room, which is a tech platform bringing garment pattern templates to the world in an easier, quicker way, cutting down product development from 12 weeks to 48 hours.
Wow. Okay, so expand. You
Expand?
used the word tech. You used the word
Mhm.
tech. I instantly went.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. Just go back one and say,
Sure.
okay, how did you get into it? What is it? What is it that you love about what you do, and what is it that we should love about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the fashion industry for a good solid 30 years now, although probably started sewing when I was 10, so you can add a few more years onto that. And I guess my official trade is a pattern maker. And so I'm the person that a designer brings an idea to, and then I make it happen. I create the template that then cuts out the garment, and then we make a sample, and then we prepare that ready for production. So people might ask, well, what does a designer do? They take all the risk. And so we put in I guess, the technical knowledge, and we have that three-dimensional way of thinking that can take a flat drawing and think about it in a three-dimensional way to then make the 2D pattern to then cut that out. And so I've been doing this for 30 years on and off, and in various roles such as garment technician. I've been a designer, I've worked offshore, locally. And for the last 16 years, I have had a business called Sample Room. I'm not overly inventive on my business names. The Sample Room is a product development house that does this in the traditional way. And so a customer comes in with a picture, we make a pattern and go through that full process. And probably about, I'm going to say maybe 14 years ago, I could see a lot of repetition already happening in what I did. And I thought, and I was very busy, and people would say to me, I just need a t-shirt. How can it be so hard? And I thought, you know what, you're actually right. Every pattern maker has a huge block library. When you're at
Mhm.
fashion school, you start off with a bodice block and a pant block and a skirt block. And then as your career progresses, you develop more blocks. So you might have a loose shirt, a fitted shirt, a tailored jacket, etc., etc. I've just taken that theory to the extreme, and I have a block library currently of about 3 million designs.
Wow.
And so basically, what Pattern Room allows someone to do is to go onto the website and build a design based on key criteria like measurements to determine what sort of fit they're looking for. They can choose hem shapes, sleeve lengths, necklines, yokes, pockets, whatever it might be. And they can build out the design that they want. And then they will have delivered into their inbox a template or pattern in a DXF format for Corel Draw or maybe 3D sampling, or an AI format if you're doing graphics, such as in the print industry, and also a technical document that accompanies that called a tech pack. And so we really just flipped the product development process around. Instead of waiting for someone to walk through the door to ask me what to do, I've said, look, here's a whole selection of different elements that you can put together to build a design, which is going to be I think that basic designs are really about 80% of the market, and you
Yeah.
can get that pattern much quicker. And therefore, if you're looking for an unusual design, then you go to the traditional pattern making service, like my sample room business.
Nice. Ah, okay. So there you go. That's where I now start to see the logical flow
Mhm.
of what you're doing here. Because in many ways, and quick question before I go into it, you said you started sewing when you were 10. Am I right in saying that was either with your mother or your grandmother?
It's my mother.
Okay.
Technically, learning to sew skips a generation, but it's something that I
Okay.
grabbed onto, and I was apparently very good at it at a very young age. So, yeah, I
Because
took it and ran with
the reason I ask, and you coined it beautifully, it does normally it's at somebody else's knee, isn't it?
it.
That you learn that, and I guess there's two ways that that can play out. One is the teacher wants to teach you, but the pupil doesn't want to learn, or the pupil really wants to learn and gets the teacher to teach them. Which way
Yeah.
around were you?
Well, I think that I just really loved it because I have two sisters who were also taught and did not run with it. I
There we
think
go.
that the way my brain thinks, I'm very much an engineer, and the process of making a garment is very much an engineering process. And
Yeah,
I guess the systems that are involved, and that's really translated to the Pattern Room website. If you're on there, it's just a logical system of how do you catalog all the different elements and build something so that it's easier to find and to replicate. And so I think the with Pattern Room, the tricky thing about it is that most people think a designer comes up with a lot of these concepts, but it's the pattern maker that draws out those concepts from a designer. So they might come in with a
sure.
picture with no measurements, no reference garments, no physical garment, and it's our job to say, how does this fit? Like, what sort of measurement is it around the body? And then you determine the fit and how long is it? So we're asking these key questions. So Pattern Room's very
Mm,
much set up the way that I would run a design meeting with a
got
customer
it.
and running
Okay.
through those
Yeah.
elements.
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting because my background in sort of personalized print from my when I had hair all those years ago. I once had a conversation with a company which I think exists in Australia called Moonpig, a greetings card
Oh, yes, yeah.
business, personalized greetings card. And in my original conversations with them, they said their words, not mine. People who think they're designers typically aren't. So what we give them is something that is 80% designed, and
Hmm.
then we let them sprinkle the fairy dust on top, and then they claim credit for it. I suppose what you're saying is, and this is the engineering part of your brain, is to give something that the bit that somebody can't do
Hmm.
is done, and then what would you like to do with the bit that we've done? And so in many ways you're creating sort of personalized fashion design, if you like, or garment design,
Hmm.
where actually you've done 80% of the work already.
That's exactly right. Because when you're wearing a garment, you may not realize that a pattern maker, we have a plethora of measurements in our head that have been built up over the years. So when we're making, for example, a regular fit shirt, t-shirt, I'm just going to use t-shirt as an example, the sleeve should fit like a regular fit t-shirt.
Mm,
And so, the hips go out a certain proportion. The shoulder slope is very similar. We don't need all the measurements because many of those we've already established. And these patterns have been fine-tuned and used. You can see behind me, this is our sort of our sample library that we use all the time, which comes from Pattern Room, but we use it in sample room all the time when a customer walks in the door with a picture. It might be for a shirt. Shirts will end up on the Pattern Room website, but they'll say, I want a shirt. I go, okay, is it regular fit? Is it loose fit? Is it oversized? And they'll say, oh, I think it's regular. It's like, okay, well, let's put the regular shirt on the mannequin. Do you like
and
that? Well,
see.
let's put the loose one
Mm,
on. Let's see what that looks like. You can do that through a reference garment that you're trying to replicate, you know.
sure.
So there's ways that you can do that without being physically in the room with me. And people often say, but does that mean someone else will have the same pattern as I do? But you're exactly correct, Richard, that you're putting your own design elements, particularly in sublimation printing and custom sportswear. It's the
Mm,
fabric you choose, it's the marketing, it's the branding, it's the way that you style it, it's the print you put on it. That all makes it unique to you. And hey, bodies are unique. So you could have the exact same t-shirt block on two different men at a cafe and they have different bodies. And so the t-shirt looks totally different on both of them.
It's a really interesting concept as well, because the variable in this, I
Mhm.
guess, and I'm saying this out loud, so I hope anybody that's watching this doesn't take offense with what I'm about to say. But what I'm about to say is our own view of our bodies are somewhat different from time to time against what the reality is. So you're talking about a number of certain body shapes. We've developed, from when we used to crawl around on the floor, in not that many different ways, but I guess it's how we see ourselves. So you talk about regular fit, slim fit, type, all of these things. You see some people, right, walking, I'm going to say it out loud, Julie, you see some people walking around wearing something, you think, what were you thinking? But what they were thinking was, I look amazing. So in many ways, we're both kind of right. So fashion and apparel is
Yeah.
is subjective. I used to be in the wine business. I spent 30 years in the wine business, and the subjective nature of taste, was very apparent to me. So I always used to say the same thing. It's not a bad wine. It's just you don't like it. So when we see somebody in a t-shirt that may be too tight for them, we'd go, fine. If you're happy, then I'm happy. You must see
Yes.
this a lot, right?
Well, it's very interesting you say that because it's often the concern. We showed at ITMA, a huge trade show in where was that, in Milan? We did a few trade shows over
Yeah.
the year, and to huge success. But people would say, "Do you have a fit for someone in Spain, or do you have a fit for someone in the UK?" And it's all very different. The one thing I do know is when we have customers from the US, if they ever buy a slim or a regular, I always call them because they're aesthetically, their design is much looser. Now, there's also a
Yes.
difference in sizing, which is very obvious on the website. We explain that, but they generally go for a loose or oversized fit. Australia is very much a regular fit in their styling, and European fit's often quite slim.
Yeah. Okay. So what you've done there brilliantly and eloquently and diplomatically is define body shapes and therefore lifestyle between three very, very different continents. And I guess the one in the middle, which is quite interesting, is the European, because my knowledge of Australia is it's an outdoor lifestyle. Most people are engaged in healthy activity, and not all, but most,
Not all.
and therefore they probably look after themselves a little bit better, shall we say? Let's say over here in the US, gosh, the portion sizes of food are big. So let's leave that there. And then in the middle, you've got the Europeans. It's interesting you mentioned Milan, because this is the bit of the world, I think, that has a view of themselves that doesn't necessarily meet or match the view that other people have of them. I'm coming off as being really rude, and I'm trying not to be, but do you see in European style more a desire to look elegant rather than a natural ability, shall we say, to look elegant?
Well, I think that the styling, if we, for want of a better word, is that they do like a slimmer fit. They do like a
Mm,
more body conscious fit. Whereas in Australia, we do like that relaxed fit. And if you've
mm.
got, so, we talk about there's two different things. There's fit and there's size. And
Yes,
so,
correct.
and people get very confused because in some people's minds, there's one fit of a t-shirt. And they go, how come I go to this store and I put a t-shirt on and it doesn't fit me and I go to this store and it does? But there's many fits. I mean, I've chosen 5 different fits from tight, slim,
Okay.
regular, loose, oversize, and I've spread the proportions out. But there are every single pattern maker that makes a pattern, of which every garment in the world that's made needs a pattern. And this is what's so crazy
Mm,
about this whole process is that when you go to a store and you see there's the blue t-shirt and next to it there's the green t-shirt, both of those t-shirts possibly have had separate patterns made for them in separate factories because most people work on the basis of starting with a tech pack and then sending that to a factory and then having a pattern made individually. And then when they go back another season for another green t-shirt, that pattern may be different again, which is why when you go back to a store, you go, well, I really loved the t-shirt from last season.
yeah.
It's totally different. Or they might go to a big brand and say, oh, I love the t-shirt from, say, Nike. And then they go back, but they go to a different department that's got a whole different development team and they buy a t-shirt and they go, why does this fit so differently? Because it's a totally different development process.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things that the industry has lost as a whole is owning their patterns. They've
Okay.
they've resorted to a tech pack and then the factory will make the pattern thinking that's saving money. But it actually costs a lot more money because of the maybe sampling going back and forth and DHL parcels, or even just the loss in sales because there's no
Yeah,
consistency of fit for a customer. But
yeah,
you've got the fit, whether it's tight, slim, regular, loose, and then you've got sizing 8, 10, 12, or small, medium, large. And then you've just got bad pattern making, which is when you put a garment on and it sort of like seems to fit, but after half an hour, it feels like it's riding back or it's choking you on the neck, or you just can't quite, you lift your arm up the way that you'd like
yeah, yeah,
to, or you don't feel as slim. It feels a bit too tight around the hips and the stomach, but loose up the top. That's just poor
sure,
pattern making. And so
yeah,
pattern rooms really to help combat that because I just know how many garments go to landfill because
mm,
no one wants to wear them, whether
yeah,
they
yeah.
never bought or whether they're bought or used in sportswear. And then after one season, people go, I never want to wear that t-shirt again. I feel so horrible when I wear it. It goes into landfill far sooner than it should.
Yeah, no, and that's just, I mean, that's a whole other conversation for another day in terms of landfill and also our behavior and attitude towards throwing stuff away. But we'll save that for another day.
Well,
Um,
I
so
will say,
Julia,
Richard, though, that we throw things away, but we also hold on to that one t-shirt that we just love for much longer than we should because it fits really well. Maybe water
that
on the
that's
neckline, it might have holes in the front where you've leant against a table. So fit
yeah,
and
but
feel.
you're bringing in a variable there that we haven't talked about yet, which is sentimentality. And and I guess in many ways, and this is kind of where I wanted to go with the conversation, with the world that we live in right now, where technology has allowed all of us to be a creator of something, because on our phone we can sit there and go, oh, look what we've made, and I know that's being driven by templates in many ways, and that's fine too. But I guess that whole ability to personalize, customize, garments, apparel, shoes, there's a generation of people in our world that like to see their name alongside somebody else's name, and it sort of feels like an alignment with brands. Do
Mm.
you see, and of course, digital print has enabled that, print on demand has enabled that in terms of what's able to be produced, because there's only, it's fine if you can design something but no good if you can't make it.
Mm.
So if
Mm.
are you now seeing a direct correlation in your business between what's possible and therefore what's likely, to be made? Do you is that connection more clear than ever?
Um, I definitely, how shall I answer that? Well, as you said before, with people like to think they're designers. I play a little bit
Yeah.
of a game at the moment whenever I'm in a public space, whether it's the airport or the train station, of just looking around and just saying, we've got that, we've got that, we've got that, we've got that. So inherently, people are not very creative in what they're wearing. But I do agree that what they put onto a t-shirt, especially the likes of customization through names,
Hmm.
etc., the print on demand aspect is very popular and it does require to have the right, I guess, the pattern template in the right format to then provide the breadth of sizing needed so that people can do that. But giving people the access to order whatever design that they want to then bring that into a business and then do the one-off pieces will be very costly. And also that
Mm.
timeline in order to do that, because even the 48 hours it would take for us to finalize and then send the pattern and the tech pack, it's a different model. Where it works in a much better way is for the company that's bringing in the patterns or selling the customization, they create their catalog. So they
Yeah.
might say, I'm in Europe, so I'm going to go for a slim fit and I'm going to do, I love the look of the new season soccer jersey that whoever's wearing. So I'm going to choose that neckline and that sleeve and put a band on the sleeve and things like that. So when a new style comes out in fashion, then they might say, great, I can grab that pattern and add that to my library. And then the customer can then customize on top of that for the
Sure.
prints and the colors. So it's just a collaboration. It's just we'd all love it to be. everything. And
Yeah.
you know, I've spoken to a few people who have we've tried to work out how to combine pattern rooming with large printing companies, and it's a bit trickier because the 3 million patterns are there available in 48 hours, but they're not there available immediately.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, no, I understand that, and that's a really good point. Actually, I hosted a conference last year in, I'm going to say Berlin. I can't remember. Sometimes you arrive in these places, you don't actually notice where you are. Hosted a conference in Berlin, and all about apparel. And we got onto the subject of sustainability, and one of the suggestions that was made was that by having those expensive one-offs,
Mhm.
or more expensive one-offs, I should say, personalized, customized, whichever you prefer, actually is good for sustainability because it reduces waste. So instead of making 1,000 smalls and hoping to sell them all and throwing the ones away that you didn't sell, you only ever make one, and
Mhm.
therefore you've sold it. And then I guess you're shifting the sustainability argument down the line a little bit, because then it becomes the customer's responsibility rather than the retailer's or the manufacturer's
Mhm.
responsibility.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
is there a move, do you think, towards that reduction of, because I guess there's still got to be blanks, right? You know, this was kind of the argument that came up, that you can only customize something if it's already made, and if it's already made, you've already got your landfill problem just stored up in a different way. So are you seeing that in your world, that people are looking for more opportunity to have individual pieces, but using a collective bargaining tool, if you like, of the blanks?
Well, I guess there's two different options. You do have blanks, and then you do have sublimation printing where you are actually putting the print on a template.
Yeah.
Um, so I have a client in the US. They have a business that makes uniforms for roller derby.
Right.
Of all things, that's all they do, just roller derby. And
That's fine.
I interviewed them. They bought a few patterns. I said, "Can we have a chat?" And they said, "You have revolutionized the fit of roller derby uniforms in the space of 4 teams. People cannot believe it fits properly." Now,
Mm.
the job is for them. Then, when a customer comes through the door, they have a way of saying, "What size is your favorite singlet?" Great, we've got that one. What length do you want it? And then they customize the print to go there. Because the
Yeah.
only downside with giving somebody who doesn't have the knowledge of design and aesthetics is they can go to all that through that process of designing something, and then they get it and they don't like it as well.
Mm.
It might
Yeah.
not. So there's fit, and fit is really, when I talk about fit, it's like proportions, it's balance, it's the body, it feels right on the body, but then
Yeah.
you've got design aesthetic, as you said before.
Yeah.
Someone might want to get a slim fit shirt and they put it on, they should probably not be wearing a slim fit shirt. So I see, for our customers, the main things that I hear from people is your product just fits right first go. It goes
Mm.
together from a manufacturing perspective. So from a custom sportswear manufacturer, they only need to do one sample. And of course, we all know
Yeah.
that when you've got a huge sublimation printing factory, you need to break into all the different lines, the printing line and the calendar line and the cutting line, and that really holds up the production. So
Yeah.
the less they do that, then the better for the overall process. They can make more money. So if they can get an approval from their customer on the first sample, then they're just winning. That's then all profit.
Sure. Yeah.
And
No, I
so,
get that. Yeah.
yeah, so I find that the people that I'm dealing with are happy that they can get the pattern that they need quickly to make a team's worth. They can have consistency of fit over men, women, and kids, tops and bottoms, because I hear many stories about, oh, I bought a medium top and bottom, but I needed an extra large top and a small bottom because there wasn't consistency. I don't hear a lot of people doing the one-off garments in particular in sublimation.
Okay.
Although I do have people say to me, I've been using blank supplier X, and I don't want to look like everybody else. I want my own fit, and I'm happy to do the production run of blanks. I just need a
Hmm.
pattern and a tech pack to go to a factory to have them made. So
Mm.
then they're building up their own unique catalog of blanks in the colors that are most popular, instead of relying on the big players to get those standard fits. I'm not
And
sure if
and
that
that's
answers the
kind of
question.
the world that I'm used to as well. What you've just described, if you translate that into, we used to do personalized labels for brands. Coca-Cola was the famous one, but they were able to make a billion, but they couldn't make one. So
Yes.
our place in the market was the maker of ones, which
Mm,
actually, strangely enough, we made millions of ones.
mm,
But they couldn't make one, so therefore, so it's that sort of position between manufacture and optimized production line
yes.
and bespoke, almost, I guess, tailoring,
Mm,
in many ways to use that parlance, because then yes, it's going to cost you more money, but it will be yours, and that's that's
yeah.
that's
Yes.
the customer's decision, then, isn't it?
Well, that's right. Or it's your business decision for your unique selling point. Because,
Mm,
and I have a customer at the moment that we help them, that they've been a customer sportswear business for a long time. They used to do the school uniforms, sports uniforms. They realize now that there's more people coming to the market. They needed to up level their game, and they knew that fit
yeah,
was what they needed to do. So they came to us for a uniform, netball uniform, so dress, polo, jumper. I think there were shorts as well. Through that process and the success they've had, they're now doing a run with the Australian Diamonds, which is the top netball team, because teams, you've got friends in teams and they all talk. And so when you say,
mm,
I'm wearing this dress and it feels fantastic, I just feel so comfortable. What great, where did you get it from? And then all of a
yeah,
sudden,
go ahead.
so good fit creates good business. And that's really down to um, they're customizing it for a team, but it's got the base that they can then use for the next customer to then build on that. So that was a great example of they've got the skill in the design area, but they didn't have the foundation right
Sure.
for where they
Yeah.
wanted their business to develop. So it was a great story.
No, it's interesting, and I guess with sports teams particularly, I've got a friend of mine who works in cricket, and he runs a team in Dubai called the Desert Vipers, and their big piece is sustainability and environmental concerns. Their uniform, their strip, their kit is made of very ethically sourced, sustainable materials. Are you seeing a shift in people's ask as much as they get,
Mm.
for that kind of stuff, but not uniquely in sport, but typically in sports?
I'm hearing about across the board because I deal with a lot of fashion customers, and of course, sustainability is at the top of their list, which it should be. I think the problem that we have at the moment is there's a reason why polyester became so popular because it doesn't crease, it dries
Yep.
really quickly, you can print on it easily, all of these elements. And so people will often say, I want a natural fiber, but I don't want it to crease, or I want a natural
Yeah.
fiber and I want it to do this. It's like, well, that's a magical unicorn. And so in order to move back to sustainability, we have to realize why we moved away from those natural
Got to
fibers
give
in the
something
first
up.
place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
so look, I talk a lot about sustainability. I have a mentoring program that teaches startup designers how to navigate the fashion industry. And I have a little course that I run called Sustainability is not just about fabric. It's about small run. It's about people wanting to wear the product for a long time. It's fit for purpose. It's fitted for purpose. There's a lot of other elements because at the end of the day, sustainability is how do we keep something out of landfill for as long as we possibly can. And when it
Yeah.
does, then it's well loved and it's well used. Or, we've got a company in Australia called Blocktex, which is taking polyester and recycling it into new polyester fabric. So at the very
Interesting.
early stages, but it needs to be 100% polyester. It can't have lycra in it. So then we start
Yeah.
looking at what are these elements. And even in swimwear, I'm doing a sustainable swimwear brand at the moment. So we're using 100% polyester swimwear fabric, but it's tighter. It hasn't got as much stretch. So there's limitations. So you can't say, I want it to be really stretchy and flexible, but it has to be 100% polyester. But that's the lycra that's doing that job. So
Mm,
you're just troubleshooting through each of these elements. So it definitely is a huge talking point and has been for a long time.
mm,
There's other ways to tackle it because I hear many, many stories of people that they went to Bali, they had their Equinol swimwear made from recycled fishing nets made. They got 300 pieces and they came in and none of them fit. And so therefore they never sold them. Well, there's no
yeah.
benefit, is it, to doing that? So it has to be that combination altogether that all the different elements are taken into consideration for it to be truly sustainable and not just rely on the stamp that is a sustainable fabric.
Yeah, no, I get that, and also the market's got to be ready for it as well, hasn't it? Because in order for it to be truly have a positive effect, then it needs to be done at scale, and the only
Mhm.
way to get that scale is to move into the part of the adoption curve where the majority will go, that sounds like a good idea, I'll do that. If
Yeah.
it stays, 30 years ago, I tried to sell non-alcoholic wine to people, and they looked at me like, what?
Why would you do that?
Fast forward, well, fast forward to
Now,
today, and
yes.
the biggest selling is like, oh, you've got non-alcoholic wine, that's great. Well, the difference is it tastes nice now. It tasted like petrol 30 years ago, and all of these things have evolved. So the market has evolved with it, and therefore it becomes standard. So I suspect in the next 10 years or so, once the early adopters have done their bit and the majority are in the middle going, we'll have that, please.
Yeah.
Scale will produce, the demands to a certain extent.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, my final question today, and it's
Mhm.
really important, Julia. And now that I know that you know everything about patterns and just all of that stuff, as you noticed today when we climbed the steps of the lighthouse here on Print Island, I am 6'5". You can't tell that from this screen because all you see is this bit. But 6'5",
Mhm.
tall.
Mhm.
I am one of those lucky people that's quite
Mhm.
that shape as well, rather than that shape. Even for my ever growing age, I still am that shape. Why is it when I buy extra large clothes, the extra large is width and not length?
Because, well, it's because they are using, or they're picking the average, aren't they? So they would have a fit model that is an average height. For a female, that's 176. For a male, it is, I think it's 6 foot, just under 6 foot, 5 foot, 5 foot 11,
Okay,
something. And
yeah.
so they're basing it on that. If you went to a brand that is particularly for tall people, then their fit model would be for that. And they would scale the pattern, whether it's
Right.
same with petite, when we scale a pattern shorter proportionally. And so therefore, they are saying, look, we don't think people get taller as they get bigger. That's the decision we've made as a business. And so we're not going to grade. So they might not grade the length from underarm down. They'll grade the from the high point shoulder to the underarm because your arms get bigger, but not
Mhm.
going further down so that that's not getting longer.
Okay. So what you're saying is that I sit slightly outside the norm.
Absolutely. So you just need to
Okay.
find, you will
See, I like
find a
that.
brand one day and you say, oh my goodness, this is perfect. And then I would say stick with that brand because they have chosen a fit model that represents someone like you. Whether it's a large size or an extra large, the proportions are the same as you are. And that's every designer's prerogative to fit to whoever they like. And then that's the target market that they have chosen to target.
I'm going to wander around some of the shows that you go to, looking for the tall, slim designers, because they'll make for themselves first, won't they, before they make for anybody else, and
Yeah,
I
if they're
will follow
lucky, if
them.
they own the brand.
Yeah, quite exactly, to the ends of the earth. Listen, Julia, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Print Island today. I've learned an awful lot, largely of how the world of clothing, with never mind fashion, putting clothes on, works, and you're doing a brilliant job. Have you got any thoughts going into 2026? It's an interesting world we're living in at the moment. We won't get involved in any of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you're seeing coming towards you this year, are you positive about the outlook for 2026?
Well, I think that what I'm positive about as far as the clothing industry, and thank you for saying clothing, because even though I talk a lot about fashion in my other business, I make anything out of fabric. I make pram
Yes.
covers and fishing reel covers and all sorts of stuff. People are more open to technology. Of course, AI and 3D sampling is a hot topic in fashion. And even though uh, it is great to see that happening, we don't need to jump 10 miles ahead. We could take a small step from what has traditionally been done and take a huge leap in cutting down our time and our costs and making our life easier. It's just being open to these things. And I think that AI has really helped with that. It might be not be the total solution because AI needs data and that's very hard to find. But it's
Mm-hmm.
opened people's eyes up to the efficiencies that can happen when we step away from what we've traditionally done, which is really exciting. So I definitely see that as a opening people's eyes to what's possible.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm the same with AI. I sort of see it as a bit like that person, that individual that you hired, and suddenly was what we call double busy, and gets lots of stuff done quickly because it's like, wow, we need more of you.
Yeah.
And that was actual intelligence. So artificial intelligence, if it does the same thing but has the same outcome, then
Yeah,
businesses will evolve, and quickly, and that's a good thing because that's why we do it, isn't it? Really. So.
absolutely.
Listen, Julie, thank you so much for joining me here in the Lighthouse today. I hope it hasn't been too cold for you. You'll now know that I am an XL polar neck sweater during the winter on Print Island. That will be a lovely thing. But thank you. It's lovely to see you, and I hope you have a very successful 2026.
Thank you so much, Richard. Lovely to chat with you today.
Thank you.